And this meeting was posted as required by the Open Meetings Act. The first item we have a quorum, and the first item on the agenda is item number 3, is approval of memorandum of understanding between the Holdsworth Center and the Harlingen Consolidated Independent School District. Veronica Cortan.
Mr. President, board members, Dr. Cavazos, and our senior team and audience. I'm excited to be here with you all this evening to share a little bit about Holdsworth with you. I'm pleased to be part of the leadership team that we hopefully will be able to embark on here pretty soon. So this evening, we are looking at bringing forward the MOU with the Holdsworth Center. So I want to talk a little bit about the Holdsworth Center. So if we have approval for the MOU, we will enter into a 5-year commitment agreement with the Holdsworth Center, starting with a leadership team that is comprised of Dr. Cavazos, Dr. Noyola, Joseph Villarreal, Dalia Garcia, Shane Strubart, and myself. And so if approved, this MOU would allow us to have a very different type of a leadership experience. Collectively, we will hear from the nation's top leadership experts around the entire country and around the entire world. And aside from that, we will also be participating in site visits to some of these top-notch, high-performing organizations. And so as we look at what the entire 5-year commitment will look like, the first 2 years, Dr. Cavazos and his leadership team will be part of a cadre that will go through the leadership experience or leadership training. Starting at the second year, we will begin to pull in our campus leaders. And so what that will look like is that over the scope of the last 4 years, about 50% of our campuses will have a campus leadership team that will go through an experience that's very similar to what Dr. Cavazos and his leadership team will go through. So just to give you an idea, we looked at the calendar, and it's about once a month that we will be coming together as a group with the Holdsworth team. And so the grant offers, they are going to be paying for our travel, for any travel that's outside of the state of Texas. And so that's a huge grant, part of the grant in and of itself. But the other thing, too, is that the Holdsworth Center will provide all of the supplies that we need, anything that we need as far as housing is concerned as well. So this grant is a huge commitment to our district. So as we've been studying Holdsworth, it's a huge honor to be part of this group of 6 districts. But I'm gonna kind of look back at my notes here, because as we have studied this, I think the board chairman said it more beautifully than anybody could have. But Dr. Simmons says that district leaders from the district come together to enhance the processes for really implementing change. And so when she talks about implementing change, she says, your leadership team starts with looking at themselves and looking at how they can evoke change and have an effective rollout of change throughout an entire system. So if you think about that, we're starting with a core leadership team of 6 of us. But within the scope of the 5 years, 50% of our campuses and their leaders and teachers are part of that as well. 50% of our campuses will also have the same type of experience. They equated it to a doctoral degree without an actual degree at the end. But I'll tell you, we got our welcome email earlier this week. And so we are going to be doing part of an assessment, a leadership assessment of ourselves. And that's where we start, is really looking inward to see, so what does change look like? And what are some areas that we would like to enhance ourselves, our personal leadership skills? What are those areas? And so we come together, and it really, really walks you through an entire 2-year program of looking at areas that you want to enhance. And then you come together as an entire team at the district level to see, so where do we go from here, right? What are some of the areas that we're wanting to enhance in our leadership at the district? Huge opportunity to build leadership capacity around the entire district. So that agreement allows us to be part of the Holdsworth Center Leadership Program, of which we will have sessions both in our state, out of our state, and out of the country. But we will also have times where Holdsworth Center will come here and study and work alongside us and look at our current systems. So it's a very, very comprehensive program. If approved, that MOU will allow us to be part of a team of 6 different districts. So the districts include Mesquite, Aldine, Spring, Judson, and Lockhart ISD. And so as we've looked at the MOU, we've studied it, we are very confident in saying that that MOU is offering everything that we would need to be part of this leadership program. And so our administration is recommending approval of the MOU. And if you have any questions, I can certainly answer those for you right now.
Thank you, Mr. President. Make a motion for approval of memorandum of understanding between the Holdsworth Center and the Harlingen Consolidated Independent School District as presented.
Second. Okay, it's been moved by Dr. Pettis and seconded by Mr. Hymas. Is there any further discussion?
Well, sure. Just if I could add a little,
Please.
maybe a little insights. And so, first of all, I think that the nice thing is that this is the second cohort of districts, as you all know, and not that I got to be careful what I say because I serve on the board of Holdsworth, but not that there were any huge problems, but like anything else, things always get better when you have experience, right? The quality of the faculty, it's just amazing. It's helpful when, I can't say this, but it seems like there's unlimited resources because of the person who's behind this, which is Charles Butt. But they just, nothing's too grand for them if it's going to benefit the learning, if it's going to benefit the leaders. It's just an amazing. They just bring it all out. I think that the processes, the procedures got better. I think the time away from the district is a lot, but it is just very impactful. And if you talk to the superintendents and the teams that have participated, they will tell you that this is not your usual professional development. These are things that are helping them in a day-to-day situation. Not next month, next week, tomorrow when they get back, they're like, wow, and they're thinking differently to the point of the last presentation. It's just instant tools and skills that you can use in real time, which is incredible. The investment, they sort of, and it was my request to do this because I think there was some folks that really, in Round Rock that hit the press because of some things going on there politically that wanted to know, time away from the district, how much is costing the district, which is not, it's an inflow of money to the district, not the other way around.
Right.
So I asked them to quantify that, and I think the estimate is about $4 million investment that this is making to our district. It's about a $4 million investment over 5 years. And so very, very excited about this. I can tell you that the district, we're already in a great place. So it's just, I can't even imagine where we're going to be in the next 5 years, but it's going to be just incredible to really not only achieve better scale, but to do things much more expeditiously with this type of professional development that'll help us achieve critical mass and your leadership capacity. So really excited about this, and I like the team that you selected. And so anyway, with that, I'll defer. I just wanted to add a little information.
Any other comments? All right. Let's proceed to vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Veronica.
Thank you.
The next item is a consideration for approval of the chiller replacement at the administration building. Mr. Cavazos.
Thank you, Mr. Powers, Dr. Cavazos, board members. Agenda item number 4 is considering approval of chiller replacement for this building. We did get 3 quotes and recommend the lowest cost, which is Carrier, at a cost of $83,002. I want to get started this as soon as possible. That's what we include in the special board meeting. We recommend approval. Be glad to answer any questions the board might have.
Mr. President, make a motion for approval of the resolution authorizing pursuant to the interlocal agreement with Texas Public. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Approval of the chiller placement as recommended by administration.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Mr. De Leon and seconded by Dr. Muniz. Is there any further comments on this item? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries unanimously. The next item is item number 5, consideration and approval of resolution authorizing principal in interlocal agreement with the Texas Public Energy Alliance and authorize superintendent or designee to negotiate and execute a contract for the purchase of electricity and related services. Mr. Cavazos.
Thank you, Mr. Powers, that we did discuss this at the last facility committee meeting, but agenda item number 5 is to consider and approve to participate in the Texas Public Energy Alliance Cooperative. This purchasing cooperative assists districts with their energy procurement. They bring in about 8 to 10 retail energy providers to bid on our contract to maximize the competition. They currently have contracted with Dallas ISD, Houston ISD, Fort Bend, Arlington, West Loco La Jolla, Los Fresnos, among others in our area. Joel Cruz, Kim Anderson, Ramon Mendoza, and myself have been reviewing these options, and we felt this was our best option in joining this cooperative and giving the superintendent the authority to execute a contract with will help us in locking in some good electricity rates. I'd be glad to answer any questions the board might have.
Mr. President, do we have any idea, as compared to where we are now,
Yeah.
what the benefit could be in terms of the better
Yeah.
rates, or do we have any ballpark?
Actually, right now, we're at about 4.2 cents per kilowatt hours, and the 1 to 3 years out is a little bit higher, but as you go 4, 5, 6, 7 years is lower than the 4.2. So we're looking at possibly locking in 5 or 6 years, maybe at under 4.0 cents per kilowatt hours, and that would translate to about a $75,000 to $100,000 savings per year for that term. So
Isn't this the same item that we talked about
It
about
is.
a month
Yeah.
ago?
we did.
And we were even talking about going out 7 or 8 years,
Yeah,
weren't
it
we?
could be even going farther than that. They're lower as you go the farther out. So you
Right.
can go up to 9 or 10 years.
So what are you recommending, or you want to study it more before?
We're looking, actually, by doing this, it's gonna allow us to get some pricing from the vendors and maybe set a strike point that say, if you can get us at 3.9 cents for 5 years, we'll lock into that. So it'll allow us to have that option with this vendor, that we can explore that, and if they don't, then we can just say, you know what, we'll wait till another term. But the market, does go up and down. Right now, it's kind of gone down a little bit. Typically, the summer months are probably a little bit better to lock in, so we're gonna monitor that closely.
What's the lowest rate you've seen?
I've seen some, that actually entered into last year or the year before, the rates were lower, longer term, 3.5.
Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah.
But they were doing like 10 years. and-
Yeah, they were doing
Yes.
long term.
So if we get 3.9 at 5, that's pretty good.
I think so. Our contract actually starts June 2020. So you're out, but it's better to lock in a lot earlier to get those favorable rates. The closer we get to June 20, the higher the rates are going to be.
Are there projections of what they anticipate the future energy prices to be?
It just, it's going up and down. Sometimes they project that it's going to inch up a little bit, but depending on the inventory that's available, it could stabilize or even go lower.
Okay.
Julio, and you probably already said it, but what's our rate right now?
4.25,
Wow.
yeah, which is a pretty good rate. That's the lowest rate we've had.
Yeah, but 3.
But the market has kind of gone down, and it's favorable rates. Is it going to go any lower? We just don't know.
Do you have a motion?
I move that we approve a resolution authorizing participation in an interlocal agreement with Texas Public Energy Alliance and authorize the superintendent or designee to negotiate and execute a contract for the purchase of electricity and related services.
Second.
Moved by Dr. Reiniger, seconded by Dr. Muniz. Is there any further discussion?
Just one further, 3 points. One is that I wanted to just commend the district on this, bringing this forward, because it shows our proactive approach to managing money. It shows that we're on or under budget, and we take that seriously, and that it's definitely a sign of our fiscal responsibility.
Thank you, Dr. Reiniger. All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Julio. And Joel, thank you all. Great job.
Yeah, thank
Okay, the next item is Julio Cavazos, and we're going to do our budget workshop.
He moved. He's
Thank
over
you,
here.
Mr. Powers, Dr. Cavazos, board members. This is our first budget workshop for this year, which actually starts July the 1st. So typically we start having our budget workshops in June or July, but because we're starting off July 1st, we have to have it a little bit earlier. These numbers are very preliminary, and they're going to change as we move forward. there's still a lot of legislation that's still pending that's gonna impact us. Hopefully, it's gonna get settled within the next 3 weeks, and hopefully it'll be in a positive way to us. So, this first page here, is the revenues and appropriations, the current law recap. Just wanted to compare, what we would have had based on current law compared to what potentially we're gonna have, and to have a one-pager that we'll go over. But based on current law, if we were to have current law, our estimated revenues for the upcoming year would be about $177.4 million. And that would be about 46.1 in local revenues, about another 125.9 in state revenues, and about 5.3 in federal revenues. So total 179. So I'm gonna turn to the next page so I can kind of show you where that comes from. This is just a comparison on this slide of our budget in 2017-18, what we budgeted, this year 18-19, what we're projecting 18-19, and what we estimate for 19-20. So the total, what we budgeted in 18-19 was about $42.4 million for local revenues. We're expected to get about 44.1 in local revenues, increase in property taxes. We're going to estimate about 46.1. Again, this is current law. It's going to change. So it's about 46.1 in local revenues. State revenues, we budgeted this year at 17,125. I mean, and that's where we're going to be, about 1788. Average daily attendance 17,125. Last year we're a little bit under 17,000. So for this upcoming year, we're going to be conservative and take about the same budget, about 17,125 in average daily attendance. Our enrollment is 18,600, 18,700, but this is how we get funded. So based on that, we estimate about a funding about $125.9 million. Again, the federal revenue is about 5.3, so the total estimated revenue is 177.4. I want to go on here to the next slide so I can show you our property tax revenues. This is important information. We just received the preliminary appraisal report from the appraisal district for the 2019-20 property values. I already adjusted this downward to where we should be in July, based on the review board decisions. So we our total taxable value is going to be about $3.8 billion, which is about a 4.53% increase. Estimating the same tax rate, about $1.31.8, would generate about $50.6 million in local revenue. There's some frozen values, so that actually translates to about $49.6 million. M&O tax rate of $1.17 would be about $44,073,000 in total property taxes for maintenance and operations. Our INS tax rate is 14.8, and that would generate about $5.5 million in INS property tax revenue. We do estimate about a 98% collection rate. So that's at 100%, 98%. The local revenues would be about $43.1 million in local revenues. Debt service about 5.4, and we have to adjust that downward because we don't collect 100% of the total taxes. So this is here on the new construction for this year. Single-family residence, about $37.2 million, just a pretty good increase. Multifamily, about $8 million. Commercial, about $24.1 million. So that's also a pretty good increase. Another increase is about 5.1. So the total increase in new construction is about $74.7 million, almost $75 million in new construction, which is, compared to last year's, about $20 million more.
This is estimated or actual?
This is what the appraisal district has, actual.
Right now.
Yeah, that's the actual amount. Now, there could be some subject to appraisal review board decisions, but that's the actual increase in new construction this year, which is, about $20 million more than last year. The year before, we had about 79, so it's comparable, but that was a good year. So this year, I think it's a good year for new construction. So we go back, and here's that $43.1 million of estimated property tax revenue. Again, I already adjusted that, to where we expect to be after the review board has their hearings. So that's pretty much where it's gonna be. So so the total revenue, about $177.4 million in total revenue. We looked at our appropriations and, we start with last year's budget and it's about $176 million. We add any new items that we have that we currently are looking at. Right now, we're looking at some staffing guidelines adjustment, about $220,000 that's gonna impact our budget. And that's basically the net of some additions and deletions of staffing that we have been looking at. We're gonna have about a $50,000 increase to our property tax insurance, and those are basically the two main items that we have, which will give us a surplus of about $1,082,000. Our salary increase the health insurance increase, and we're expecting about a 5%. So I just plugged in $500,000 for that, and that would give us right now a surplus of $582,000. That's where we will be based on current law, and you can see there's nothing for salaries, right? So, based on current law, as we move forward, there's no additional revenues for any type of salary increase. One of the things that the legislation has been talking about is, increases to teachers and staff. So I'm gonna go over that here in a little bit. Again, this is the revenues, the property tax revenues. This is the total that we got from the appraisal district, and this has the net taxable at $3.9 billion. I adjusted that downward, to 3.6. Again, because these are preliminary numbers. Again, these are the new values, new construction. So it's about, again, $74 million there. So there's still some legislation that's still pending. We're 3 weeks away from the end of the session, and I think a lot is going to be happening here the next couple of weeks. So here, I have three new revenue scenarios.
Hold on, Julio. That's gonna be on page 10 of your binder.
Yeah.
So if you're on page 10, it's new revenue scenarios is what he has.
Right.
So before you go into that,
Yes, sir.
so based, and this is what we're here to talk about, these new revenue scenarios, but based on, if we just didn't have the situation, right, we weren't in a, we would otherwise not be, at this point in time, to do any salary increases, at least this early in the process of the budget situation, because you're only projecting about a $600,000 surplus.
Correct.
And so we would be in a situation where we'd be a little bit tight for salary increases.
That is correct. Unless we do some other adjustments to staffing, we could. But at this point in time, with the current law, there probably wouldn't be any increases for staff.
Can you, before you go into the new revenue scenarios, remind us, where did we end up on their salary increases last year? And give us but just what was the total dollar? Was it $3 million?
It was, I think it was $2.2 million, and then we put in about $500,000 or $600,000 for health insurance. So that was about $2.8 million. Yeah, that's it.
So with our surplus right now of 600,000, we're only about 20% of where we were, or 25% where we were last time, because it was over $2 million what we had for salary increases.
Yeah, we still need about another, $1.5 million,
to get to at least where we did last time.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
Again, these are new revenue scenarios, and they're gonna change. So every year, we get different district runs by like the Equity Center or Moak and Casey that provide us some estimate based on new legislation. So I've seen different runs. Some runs show us getting $11-12 million more. Some have $9 million. Some have a little bit less, based on what the state ends up doing. So we believe that we're going to get some additional revenue. Hopefully, it'll be in the $11 million mark or more. But I wanted to put some scenarios here as far as what impact that would be. So with the first column there at $11 million, we've heard, and I'm sure that everybody's heard that the Senate has that $5,000 teacher increase per year, and so we said, okay, what if if that was to happen and we only receive $11 million, what can we do for teachers? So $5,000 for teachers is about a 9.4% increase to their schedule. We figured, okay, if we do that, maybe we can do 4.5 for administration, 5%, for hourly and paraprofessionals. Again, these are estimates. I mean, they're not our recommendations yet, but this is more or less what we think we might be able to do. So that $5,000 for teachers would translate to about $6.3 million in salary increase, just teachers. The 4.5 for administration, about 1.1, and the 5% for hourly and staff, about 1.6. Total of about $9,065,000. Some of that is paid with federal dollars, so about 93% is paid with local dollars. So what's going to impact our local budget is this $8.4 million. So assuming that we have $11 million, we still have some money left to do some other things that we wanted to do. Again, there's that $500,000 health insurance increase. We've, have some new education programs that we do want to talk to the board about, for the pre-K for all. If we do a pre-K for all, we would have to hire additional staff. And we believe that that would cost about $640,000 more per year. And that's to have, a pre-K for all students that are 4 years old. We also have our LVM program that we're going to start this year that is going to cost about $174,000. The STEM programs that we talked earlier today would cost about $350,000 through Discovery, if that's what we choose to go to, but that's about more or less where we're going to be at. We've talked about some safety and security items. The new director for security would run more or less about $95,000. That estimate how much that position will cost. Safety and security budget for year one. We have discussed the safety and security items with the board in our past meetings, and we're working on a 5-year plan. And if we earmark $500,000 for year one, we can do that. The total estimate of new cost about $10.7 million, right? Assuming that we would do this. And if we get $11 million more in additional revenues, we still have about $300,000 left. Again, this is an assumption, and it's going to change, as the state finalizes, their bills, and hopefully here in the next couple of weeks.
And Julio, on that option number one, more than likely, that one's not gonna go through, because that's if the Senate wants that. They haven't even gone through, that's not what the House is wanting.
Yeah.
So
They're going to go into
negotiation
conference
on
committee,
that.
so the Senate and the House are now going to iron out, the different plans and come up with a final
Compromise.
But yeah, the Senate still has that. And all of this is tied into property tax reduction. So, it's pretty much given that nothing's going to happen in public education without a property tax reduction of some point. I think the sales tax increase, I think that was taken off the board yesterday.
Yep.
So I don't think that's going to happen anymore. But they're marrying public finance, with property tax reduction, so something's going to happen there. So that's assuming, again, an $11 million increase in revenues, and we've seen some runs, that's a possibility, that could be a possibility. So we said, what if we don't? What if we just get $9 million? So with $9 million, we might be able to do a $4,000, raise for teachers, which is 7.5%. Of course, everything's going to get adjusted. 3.5% for administrators, 4% for hourly. That amounts to a little bit over $5 million for teachers, $866 for administrators, and $1.3 for clerical. Total of $7.2 million. Again, 93% is paid out of locals. So $6.7 million is the impact to our budget. So from that $9 million, we have to take off the 6.7. So again, we still have these same, potential new costs to our budget, the 500,000 increase, the pre-K for all, the LVM program and the STEM program, and these other safety and security items as well. So the total there is about $8.9 million. So it's pretty close to that $9 million mark. So what if we don't get $9 million? What if we get less? $7 million. So with additional $7 million, and that's still quite a bit of an increase for us, we could still do, what we want to do with these other programs, and maybe do a $2,500 increase for teachers, 3% for administrators, 3.5% for hourly. That's going to be about 4.6 total in local dollars, and still do the same programs over here. So that's gonna be about $6.9 million. Yeah, these are very preliminary, and these are just for discussion, and it's probably gonna be different than this. You know, I'm hoping that it's gonna be more in the $11 million mark. I've seen some legislation that I think that's probably gonna be doable. The increase for teachers, and it depends what the state mandates. I mean, if they mandate the $5,000, then we have to do that. The House says basically, whatever new revenues you get, you need to devote 25% for salary increase for teachers. So it gives a little bit more flexibility what we can do. Again, it's still, I mean, they should be finalizing this, you know, here in the next couple of weeks. We hope that they don't go into a special session, but it's happened before.
Julio, I know this is very preliminary, but we'd like the $11 million run. Which one is more likely?
Yeah. I think that it's probably gonna be, you know, around that $10-11 million mark, in additional new revenue.
Julio, and that's great news. I have one, I guess maybe, what's the word? I mean, just sort of like a procedural question. Given the fact that our budget now starts July 1, so we're gonna have to approve this in June, so at a special meeting, I'm assuming in late June, the budget for next year.
Yeah, we're actually looking at June 24th as a date that we
Okay.
think it might be good to adopt.
Okay,
yeah.
so that being said, obviously, you know, being that the budget's tied to property taxes, if this goes to special session, meaning that this is not gonna get approved till July, this special session will be in July, how does that go? Do we still go forward with the budget, and do we go forward with this budget?
No.
Or do we go ahead and project something that they know is likely gonna happen, but be a little bit more conservative? What does that situation look like?
So we would go forward in adopting the budget, because, you know, we need to adopt the budget by June 30th. But we will probably not adopt it with a salary increase.
Okay.
And we would come back and do a budget amendment in July or
Okay.
August
Got you.
to
Got you.
incorporate,
So,
you know.
so we would do this for now,
Right,
what we have, you know, guaranteed,
correct.
on current law, and then we could always amend that
Sure.
after the special session.
Right, yeah.
Thank you for that.
That's what, you know, we think that we would do, if they go into special session, because we don't know where it's gonna end up, and, I don't think we can, you know, pass an increase that might not be there, so I think we would probably do a budget amendment, and bring it to the board in July.
And I think what's important here, we've been in this situation before, although this is our new budget cycle that we're doing July 1st. We have adopted a budget based on conditions, based on what comes out of the biennium legislative session. So that's not new. One of the things that you'll see as you see the different scenarios is I think it's critical that we invest money in salaries for the staff, for the teachers, and so forth, because there are other districts that will be getting money, and while they may choose not to do that, we want to keep our momentum going and make certain that we're competitive with our salaries. And so if you kind of look at the runs, just the first run, if the board agrees, you're looking at any new money is about 85% going just to salaries. And so that's a big commitment, but it keeps us on the path of being competitive in salaries. And so that's why you're seeing the different scenarios. Julio and I have been studying and visiting with different people, and it looks like we'll end up somewhere in that space. So I think it's important to look at also the big picture. And we know that we are looking at about a year for IDEA to move into the Harlingen community. And when that happens, and you saw the ADA and you see how enrollment is and how we're funded, there's a potential there that we could lose some students. And when you lose students, and of course that comes with a reduction in budget and so forth. But that's why you see there our recommendation to do pre-K for all students. Because when you do pre-K for all, then the parents have already committed and brought them into our district, and they're less likely to be jumping back and forth to different campuses. And so you see it in all the scenarios that we want to do pre-K for all. We want to launch that responsibly. I have had Carmen Alvarez and Lori Romero, my assistant superintendent and my director of literacy, really studying that and the impact. And while you do pre-K for all, you know that we will be eating up, if not taking up, some of our facility space, right? Because there are some, you have to commit building space for that. But we believe that it's in our best interest to position ourselves this year with pre-K for all, a year in advance of them opening a campus, so that and look, what happens when charter schools move in, and we've had this conversation, and is that other districts are just getting started with their transformation. We're 5 years into transforming Harlingen Public Schools. And while, as a superintendent, I may get criticized, and we may get criticized, why are we moving so fast and why are we changing things, is because we want to be 5 years ahead of the game, of the competition. But as we study some vulnerable spots, some of our vulnerability is if pre-K 4 students start at IDEA, they're going to stay there through the whole elementary experience unless they have a bad experience there. And so you also see a commitment to safety and security, which you all have been asking for and saying, okay, we've done our first 5-year plan, we're looking at our strategic plan, let's put a placeholder there. And I think that as you see, regardless of the scenario, we're looking at investing money in that space because it's important. A lot of that money will go, and I think Dr. Noelia will reiterate this, it's going to be in the mental health component of safety and security, because we use our TRE funds for physical changes. And so that's why those numbers are stagnant regardless of the scenario. They stay the same. And so we're bringing this as a conversation piece, but we also, this board has never planned year by year. We've always looked out into the future and see what's in the horizon so that we position ourselves in the best place to move forward. And so we see runs, they say 11 million. We've seen a run where we're at 13 million. But we're being conservative. We increased our enrollment by
But almost 180 students.
180
Last year.
students, but we're not adjusting that number. I've been looking at our specialty schools and where we're bringing in enrollment. There are kids that have already applied and are coming in from out of district, and so, but we're not adjusting our enrollment. We're going to stay flat. If that happens, then we'll be in a greater position. And so this is all a strategy as we move forward in looking at 2-3 years out. But we have to stay. We have to stay solid when it comes to competitive salaries. I think that's critical. So,
Well, Doc, so let me ask you this, and I appreciate you going out. You hit it, out of the park in terms of the pre-K and the safety. I think that's crucial. We have to do that. I have a question about, well, first of all, it sounds like, to your answer to my previous question, we can do some salary increase, but it's going to be pretty minimal as to bear, and then we'd have to come back with an amendment down later on. But we could do something, at least for now. Wherever you end up by the end of June, we can do something, but it won't be what it was in the past. But we can, and then we can amend it later on.
We can always amend our budget, in August, to come in
Sure.
and say, we're going to infuse another $5 million, and it's going to go for increase.
Okay.
excuse me, and I know that Mr. De Leon, you're very involved in what's happening with governmental relations. There hasn't been a lot of talk about a special session, so we're anticipating that they're going to close the session responsibly.
I
And if
agree.
they do,
Yeah.
then we would be able to adopt a budget based on the
And
runs.
I'm not,
Yeah.
and I agree. I'm just being prepared for all possibilities, because as you mentioned, when you marry it to something, like property taxes, and with, the governor has said his expectations, or else there's possible veto in a special session.
Right.
That's the only reason I bring it up. Okay, so, but let's think positive, and it's going to get done. I have a question about. So, and I love the pre-K for all and the safety, and I want to make sure we get that right. So, I don't want to, pigeonhole ourselves to a certain dollar amount, but I know staff, you guys have put a lot of thought in this, and if that's what it is, what it is. What I don't see on here, and that's what I have a question about, is special ed. I think that this board is really committed to really doing that right. And I don't know, is that in the budget somewhere in terms of making sure that we put sufficient dollars into making sure we are the best of the best, and we are the the best school district for special ed in this region and this state, because that's what I think we expect.
And actually, we do have an item in the TRE budget for we call it a transition academy for special needs population to transition them into the workforce.
So that's here, sir?
It's 500, it's right there in the bottom.
So you want to go over the TRE budget?
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
I was gonna go over that. But yeah, we're actually still looking at our staffing for special education, and we haven't finalized that. And absolutely, if there's some more needs in staffing and special education, we will bring that forward. But for TRE budget for year 5, Treasury Hills renovation, that's the second part of the Treasury Hills renovation, what Oscar was talking about, doing the front office and the library, about $3.2 million. UTRGV Early College High School, year 5 is about $2.5 million, and year 6, about another $5 million of commitment, so $7.5 million over that 2-year time frame. It's going to take 2 years to build it, so we split it up in 2 years. Annual payment for the maintenance tax notes that we got last year, about 1.1. We do have a maintenance budget of $461,000. Tech infrastructure that we committed to spend $600,000 a year in our tech infrastructure for the next for the first 10 years of the TRE. So put $600,000. Music instruments, $400,000. That's the last year for the music instrument. The bus lease that we currently pay out of that, $300,000. Multi-purpose to do the rest of the elementary campus and fix the multi-purpose, $400,000. The Transition Academy for the special population, $500,000. And the Whole Language Academy at Vernon, another $500,000. So that's a $10 million. So we're doing that for the special needs population, the $500,000. We think that can be done in year 5, all of it, pretty much complete.
So to your point, Dr. Perez, and I think that board members have been given this report. We've been studying the special ed student that is graduating. They get to be educated till the age of 22. Those students and students in the secondary program need real life experiences, and it's really a transition to independent living and also into workforce development. And so the Transition Academy that is being studied and being designed by the staff gives this whole idea of building an actual home where the kids would be learning their day-to-day living, because the children, when they leave our schools, they're either going to go to their home, back to their parents, or they're going to go into independent living. Those that are not mobile or are wheelchair bound and are have severe needs, parents transition them into nursing homes and so forth. But the majority of the kids have to have these employability skills. Right now we have makeshift programs throughout our high schools. This is an opportunity to bring it all under one space and really give these kids meaningful learning experiences on how they're going to go into independent living. Now, you see a $500,000 investment in that. I can tell you that as staff and the design team is working, we may be coming back to the board and saying we are needing additional funds that we may have to invest out of fund balance. This is the right thing to do. This is the high school programming for the students who need to successfully transition into life. So today we put a marker of 500,000. I can tell you that we may need to come back. We are looking at sites. You will be getting a report here soon, really looking at this space. So in the big picture, we'll probably be the only ones in the valley that have this kind of opportunity for kids. What we have seen is that where it's a brand new facility, what we have seen in other districts and in other programming is that there's going to be districts and parents who are going to want to drive their kids into our schools to be part of this transition program. We're using the word transition. I can tell you we're not going to end up there. It's going to have a different name. But the whole idea is that the kids successfully move on to their independent living and so forth. And so it is specifically designed for students who are arted there and get their learning experiences there. So you'll walk in and it's going to be an actual home and it's going to be learning spaces. There's going to be some kinds of certification, which are going to be given opportunities for kids so that they can really go into independent living. So, and that's, again, you all have been asking for that. You all have been really focused on that. As you can tell, you don't have the sensory rooms here because you have funded that with current TRE funds. And so the sensory rooms that we're putting out at the campuses for our kids, that is not in next year's budget because we're getting it done this year, which we've committed as part of our modernization of the classrooms. So.
A couple more slides on the historical data and graphs. So this page here is a statement of revenue, expenditures, and fund balance over the past 6 years and what we're estimated for this year. For this year, we're estimating to be have revenues about $168.1 million, which is a decrease of about $9.8 million from last year. That's because we're ending off our year June 30th, so we don't have the August revenues that we typically get from the state that is incorporated here. But at the same time, we don't have the July and August expenditures. So the revenue is going to be lower, the expenditures are going to be lower, about 162 compared to 184 last year. So we anticipate having about a $5.2 million increase to our fund balance, and our fund balance is 39.6. So we're expecting our fund balance to be about $44.8 million as of June 30th. Again, these are preliminary numbers. They're going to change a little bit.
Well, and just going back to what Dr. Carlos just said, if I heard him correctly, I mean, and there being other opportunities where we can, I just feel strongly, and I don't speak for myself, I can't speak for anybody else, but I mean, I just feel strongly about these specialty schools, especially the special ed, the transitional, I mean, whatever the name ends up being, is that we need to put the resources to make it the best of the best. So it is a draw for the region, and so it is someplace that people come down. We have, people visit School of Health Professions. It needs to be a place where people are traveling from all over and saying, we need to go check that out, what they're doing over here. Because I guarantee you we'll have Workforce Commission come in and give us grants and give us money. I guarantee you we'll have, industry and work and folks and, companies and corporations say, hey, wow, this is really awesome. We'd like to hire your graduates and things like that. And the nice thing is it goes out to age 20, whatever.
22.
22. And so with that kind of fund balance and that kind of stuff, just my personal opinion is I just think we need to do it right.
Sure, and that's what the fund balance is there for, to use for these special, one-time projects. The
That
$44
million, that's one of the highest ones we've had in a while, because we've had it low as about 26, 25 million.
That's correct.
And
It's one of the highest we've had.
it's been
and keep in
growing
mind,
over
this is preaching to the choir for this board, but just as we came out of an election, is our winner here? Yes, he is. He's sitting here. We haven't canvassed the votes. So we have to, let's keep our fingers crossed there. But I will tell you, there's a lot of misinformation out there, and I will remind the board, that, we are in a situation where the TRE is allowing us to this. It'll slowly build up, over time, to where whatever we have to do next, we'll pay cash for it, whether it's a new school or some, and that's kind of what we're doing. So we're committing, I know we're committing the TRE every year to certain projects, everything else, but, down the road, whether it be 5 years and we did it in a new middle school, or we need to do whatever, we'll have the ability to pay. So in other words, the TRE allowed a situation we will be able to forego another bond.
Sure.
And that's a great situation for us to be in, basically.
In fact, it may be, it's to a point where we may get dinged because we have a little bit too much on the thing, where we may have to strategize using some of that.
No, I think we'll be fine.
If it were up to
We'll
Julio,
land
he'd be
it.
putting another nickel in there. But here's what I will say. I think it's also something that you'll be seeing coming up here pretty quick because we have a tight time frame.
This again is the 10 million. I'll remind again, this is misinformation was out there. It's not 10 billion taxpayer money. It's 4.2. We get 5.8 from the state on an annual basis, and that's another amazing situation. We're getting $10 million injection into infrastructure and into upgrades and facilities and new facilities, everything else. Plus, our fund balance is going up and up and up, and we're paying on today's prices. And 5.8 a year is from the state. So sorry.
And I think we need to be mindful of the fact that The whole idea was, and you saw what happened in Edinburgh. There is no appetite for a bond election. They lost it at 70, almost 72%,
Yeah.
right? And so if we position ourselves for another bond and it doesn't pass, the problems don't go away. We made a commitment to the community that we would, any facilities that we build, we're going to try and pay for it cash. You see, over a 2-year period, we are proposing to pay the early college high school UTRGV campus in cash and not get into debt. That was the purpose of it. I will say on the Transition Academy, because you're going to be seeing it here in the next couple of meetings, Mr. Villarreal and Mr. Garza are working with a design team that parents are really excited about this concept. But their whole message to us is independent living and employability skills. It's not about just another 4 years of the same thing, but get them independent to an independent point. Having said that, you're going to have an opportunity to determine where we build this facility, whether we retrofit an existing facility. But what we're envisioning is where our other high schools and our high school programs do rotations and programs in that facility, and it becomes a sensitivity training for all our kids about we have all our students that we're responsible for. And so we envision kids from the high school doing their volunteer hours at the academy and working hand in hand with the students to get them to independent living. Incredible opportunities that can happen done right. However, that's why I said we have put $500,000 as a place marker based on the models that I'm seeing now by the committee. We have a model where we retrofit an existing building and expand versus a brand new facility. We'll end up somewhere in the budget, but you all have been asking for careful consideration of that population, and that's why we're here tonight.
Dr. Cavazos, on that note, are we gonna continue the cohorts of 400? Because now that we're partnering with UTRGV, you're gonna have a lot more interest coming into early college high schools. So are we gonna expand so that there's more opportunities?
So one of the parts of the design, and remember, we have agreed as a district to invest in phase 1 of the program. And so we're investing $7.5 million. UTRGV is investing $7.5 million for a total of $15 million campus. But what UTRGV is going to do is they're going to master plan the 30 acres. And so they anticipate that within a few years, they will have grown out to the master plan. So we will have a university here in Harlingen. We will be part of phase 1, but the idea is to build it out to the 30 years. So the infrastructure they're doing and their master planning, I anticipate that within 5 years, you will have a full 4-year college here for the community as well, not just for our students. And so this is a moment in time that will become a movement. It was, and you know, and you all know, it was in development and planning behind the scenes for over a year before we could publicly say we signed the MOU. So, but it is phase 1. To answer your question, I don't think we're going to stay at the cohort of 400. I think we're going to be offering night classes there. I think kids are going to be taking their academic core there. And so it's going to really create a movement for our students and a great opportunity.
Just a couple more graphs. This is just a graph on our fund balance, again, historical, and as the Mr. Leon was saying, well, back in 2009, 10, we were about $30 million. So yeah, it's increased over the years to about 40.4. So that's a good thing. You know, we can use that, you know, for those one-time
So
projects.
that is the highest ever,
Yep.
or at least since
In a long
2009.
time,
Yeah, it's pretty
Wow.
incredible.
ADA, this is the ADA over the past 10 years. Last year, we're at 6953. This year, we're at 17125. And as I mentioned before, our budget for this upcoming year is going to be at 17125. We think that, you know, I mean, that's being conservative. We hope that it is a little bit higher than that.
Julio, on the 41.4 estimate on the fund balance, how many months out would that carry us?
That's about 3 months.
3 months?
Yeah. Yeah, which is what TA has, you know, optimum for district. We have a 2-month policy with the board that we can have a 2-month operating fund balance. TA, for the first indicators, they give the max scores if you have, you know, 3 months. Anything more than that, then you know, I think they frown on that because you're overtaxing your base and you're really not using the dollar. So, with, you know, having a 3 months is ideal. 2 months is perfectly fine as well.
2 to 3.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right.
State revenues, you know, we still get about the majority of revenues from the state. Our property tax rate, which is probably gonna change, you know, as we move forward, with, some new tax legislation. I've heard that it's gonna, you know, decrease maybe even 10 cents, you know, per hundred. So we're at $1.31 now, 117 is M&O and .148 is SINS. And that's probably gonna change with the new legislation that they are. Got to answer any other questions the board might have?
I think we're good. Thank you very much. Very, very thorough. Thank you.
Excellent.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is to adjourn to closed or executive session pursuant to Texas Government Code Sections 551.071, 551.072, 551.074, and 551.082, the Open Meetings Act for the following purposes. A, discussion of recommendations regarding employment of the renewal of educators and professional contracts for the probationary employment for the 2019-2020 year. B, discuss employment of teachers and other professional staff. We are adjourned into closed session.